Imagine living in a booming metropolis of 500,000 people, but having absolutely zero genuine public forums to share your thoughts. Welcome to London in the 1650s. Back then, public speech was entirely monopolized by just three strict institutions: the church, the royal court, and the local alehouse. That is it. Nowhere else existed. Because of this massive structural trap, the concept of public opinion literally did not exist. It is not a natural human default. It was impossible. Look at the church. It was built for one elevated voice to dictate absolute truth to silent masses. The royal court was exactly the same, acting as a top-down dictator of law and information. And the alehouse? It was a false oasis. Noblemen sat high above tradesmen in strict social hierarchies. None of these places allowed for real debate. The church punished heresy, the court imprisoned critics, and the alehouse kept the masses drunk and divided. Think about a typical day. In the morning, the priest speaks, and you just listen. In the afternoon, the king posts a law, and you simply obey. By evening, you drink in the alehouse under a lord's watchful eye. Because there was no egalitarian space to record anything, your best idea dies with the night. Before you can change the world with a revolutionary idea, you need a physical room where that idea is actually allowed to live. But what if one single room, costing just 1 penny, could shatter this entire centuries-old matrix forever? A space with absolutely no hierarchy, fueled by a bitter, dark drink. Let's step inside. 1 single penny. That was the price of entry. For a working man in the 1660s, it wasn't exactly free. A fishmonger only made about 8 pennies a day. But parting with that 1 copper coin bought you something impossible. It bought you a university education. Let's go inside. Welcome to the London Coffee House. Look closely. That is a wealthy duke sitting shoulder to shoulder with a common dock worker. This room operated on a radical, unspoken rule of absolute social equality. There were no reserved seats, no VIP sections, no separation by rank or wealth. If you paid your penny, you were equal at the table. You could sit anywhere, and you could talk to anyone. But they weren't just here for coffee. They came for the information. 3 layers of news ran simultaneously. First, printed daily newspapers were scattered across every single table. Second, radical political pamphlets were completely free to read. But the third layer was the most powerful of all. Live news runners sprinted between coffee houses. They carried handwritten slips straight from the docks, arriving by the hour. The moment a runner burst through that door, the entire room stopped. Real-time live debate erupted instantly. Writers sitting in the corner recorded these fierce arguments. They printed them into new pamphlets and distributed them right back to the tables, a self-sustaining, self-accelerating information loop. But here is the craziest part. This democratic utopia was not created by political philosophers. It was commercially engineered. Coffeehouse owners bought the newspapers so customers would stay longer. Longer visits meant more coffee sales. The birth of modern democracy was literally a profit-driven business model. Yet, it worked. For the first time in human history, an ordinary tradesman could debate high-level politics openly. The elite scholars absolutely hated it, but the working class loved it. They gave this legendary institution a name of their own, the Penny University. Public opinion did not exist before this room. It was manufactured right here, 1 penny at a time. But the crown was absolutely terrified. By the year 1672, the dark streets of London were transforming. King Charles II realized that these cheap, crowded rooms were breeding something completely unprecedented. This wasn't just harmless gossip over a warm drink. The crown saw a direct, existential threat to its absolute power forming right under its nose. Sitting at his heavy wooden desk, surrounded by scattered intelligence reports, the frustrated king was growing desperate. The danger came down to the medium itself. In a traditional alehouse, drunken spoken words simply faded into the night. But inside a coffeehouse, sober, caffeinated debates were instantly written down. They were turned into printed words that could easily spread from hand to hand. Information was suddenly permanent, and it was moving faster than ever before. Men handed out these printed pamphlets in smoky, crowded rooms, turning whispers into viral political weapons. The king panicked. He issued a royal proclamation in 1672. Ignored. He tried again in 1674. Ignored again. The public just kept drinking, so he finally dropped the hammer. On December 29, 1675, Charles issued the ultimate royal ban. He legally ordered every single coffeehouse in London to be shut down permanently by January 10th. No exceptions. The absolute monarch had drawn a firm line in the sand. It was the ultimate test of state power against the people. In his official royal portrait, Charles appears untouchable. He assumed his decree was the final word. But Charles did not wait until January 10th. The public backlash was so intense, so overwhelming, that the king made a humiliating retreat. On January 8th, 2 days before his own deadline, he reversed the ban. The king surrendered, but his fear remained, leading him to deploy paid government spies instead. These undercover informants sat quietly in the coffeehouses, secretly writing down every single word of dissent. The public had officially demonstrated power over the state. The crown bowed to the conversation. And soon, this exact blueprint would cross the ocean. The public had officially demonstrated power over the state. The king failed to close the coffeehouses. So they kept growing. And what happened next is almost impossible to believe. The chaotic debates inside these smoky rooms didn't just fade away. They accidentally created the modern world. 3 rooms, 3 massive global institutions, still alive today. Step inside Edward Lloyd's coffeehouse in 1691. See that man reading from the wooden pulpit? He wasn't preaching. He was broadcasting the latest news on which ships had arrived, which had sunk, and which were missing. The merchants sitting at these tables didn't just listen. They started buying and selling maritime insurance directly over their coffee cups. This exact practice, born right here, became Lloyd's of London. Today, it is a high-tech titan of global finance, but it started in a coffeehouse. Now look at Jonathan's coffeehouse in 1698. A group of rowdy stockbrokers had just been expelled from the prestigious Royal Exchange for bad behavior. Their solution? They moved to Jonathan's, pinned share prices to a simple chalkboard, and started trading over coffee. This outcast network became the London Stock Exchange. The trillion-dollar engine of the global economy was literally invented by outcasts with a chalkboard. But it wasn't just finance. In 1711, Joseph Addison and Richard Steele sat at a similar table. Listening to the debates around them, they launched a daily publication called The Spectator. They printed just 3,000 copies. But because each copy was passed hand to hand through the coffeehouse network, those 3,000 copies reached an estimated 60,000 readers. They had just invented the modern editorial column: insurance, global finance, modern journalism. None of these pillars of society were planned by a government. They grew completely organically from a penny entry network of human conversation. The modern world was not planned in a palace. It was argued over in a coffeehouse. But what happens when this decentralized blueprint crosses the ocean? To understand what happened next, we need a lens. Enter Jürgen Habermas. He was a 20th century German philosopher. Habermas obsessed over these exact coffeehouse rooms. He realized they created something entirely new. He called it the public sphere. It was a space where normal citizens could debate public matters, and they did it completely free from state control. Habermas called their method rational critical debate. Anyone could speak. Arguments were judged purely on evidence. Your social rank gave you zero advantage. A tradesman could openly debate a wealthy gentleman. They tested their ideas together. Public opinion was born. But this perfect blueprint had a massive flaw. The Penny University had a strict rule. Women were banned from entering. 50% of London's population was excluded by design. Women actually ran many of these coffee houses, but they could not sit and debate inside them. The public sphere was structurally broken. Habermas defined the public sphere as private people coming together, but in 1700s London, only men qualified as that public. Equality was an illusion. Fast forward to today. We have the internet. We have social media. We hold more information than any coffee house ever could. But Habermas issued a dark warning. He said our modern public sphere has collapsed. We traded reasoning together for scrolling alone. The coffee house forced you to face strangers. Today, you sit completely alone in the dark. Back then, you argued against disagreement. Now, algorithms only show you what you already like. Your existing views are just privately reinforced. A fishmonger and a baron once sat at the same table. They paid 1 penny. They disagreed. They argued. And their arguments literally built the modern world. Today, we have the entire internet in our pockets. But look at our debates. Look at our screens. Are we actually doing any better? Here are your key takeaways on the public sphere. Pause the video to review. Take control of your media diet.